All right, Allison, welcome to the podcast. We're going deep quick today and being vulnerable. So I would love for you to talk about that moment.
I grew up in a very entrepreneurial family. And honestly, I could not hold a job for more than a couple of weeks. So I knew when I was in school that I had to figure out this business thing. And so I started my first company when I was 19 years old. And I was writing poems for birthdays and anniversaries and selling them for like $25 a pop. And I thought, oh, this is the coolest thing ever. And then people started saying to me, Allison, I don't need a poem, but do you do brochures? Do you do radio commercials? Do you do television commercials? And I would hear my dad's voice in my head saying, honey, if someone asks you to do something and you think it's worthwhile, even if you don't know how to do it, just say yes and then figure it out. And so I used to hang out at the radio station and the TV station and the printer with press checks at 3 a.m. and say, teach me everything I need to know. And so by the time I was 25, I had a full service advertising and PR firm with clients like Ben and Jerry's and Supercuts and Allstate and Charlotte Russe. And I was helping them to market and grow their business. And our agency started growing really fast. And I was making money and I was traveling all over the country. And you would have looked at me back then and said, oh my gosh, she's got it all together, this young lady. Wow. Well, I did, for all intents and purposes, externally. But internally, what started happening was that I realized that I had no idea how to scale a business. I could get clients, service clients, but I didn't really know how to be a leader. I didn't know how to empower a team. I was a control freak. I thought I had to have my eyes on everything. And so I would be up every night till 2 or 3 a.m. working on these ad campaigns. And my daughter was under 2 years old at the time. So I was all over the place, splitting at the seams. And over time, I started feeling trapped in my own success. I felt depressed. I felt completely exhausted, beyond exhausted. And I would tell my friends, I'm just not happy. And they'd say, well, Allison, you're making money, who cares? And so then I felt guilty for having these feelings. And I just did not know what to do. I was so afraid. I had people depending on me. I thought, what if I can't recreate this success? And I was just spinning and spinning to the point that I started having panic attacks on Sunday, thinking of Monday. I just felt like my heart was pounding out of my chest. And one day it was about 4 p.m. and I was on location with a client. And I all of a sudden went, oh my God, I forgot to pick up my daughter from daycare. So I went running, racing to this woman's daycare. His name was Gracie. Never forget it. I pull into the driveway and I wasn't really thinking straight. I jumped out of the car and I did not throw it all the way in park. Mm. And so I look back and I, without thinking, jumped into the car to try to stop it. And the car door knocked my legs out from underneath me and pulled me underneath my own car. And the car rolled over my legs. This is a 4,000-pound car. I'm a little woman. And it dragged me into the street. And there were definitely angels looking over me because right when it was close to my face, there was an incline in the street and it rolled the other way. But I was lying underneath my own car, completely in shock, completely frazzled, thinking, something is not going right in my life. And so I was rushed to the hospital, and miraculously, I did survive, because there's a lot of people that actually have the same thing happen and they do not survive. But it was a huge wake up call to me. And the question that I will never forget that came to me at that point was, do you want to be in the same place a year from now, 10 years from now? And, we all know life just goes so fast. And that really just lit a raging fire under my feet to say, no, if this is what success looks like, I don't want it. But I loved business. I just knew I needed to figure the scaling thing out. I needed to understand, how was it that my clients that had thousands of employees, you didn't see the business owner standing over everyone like an orchestra leader, telling them what to do. And this was the beginning of me understanding what scaling was about, how to really be a visionary CEO, what were the systems and processes that needed to be in place to develop my, what I call now the Scale It method. And then I went on to build 9 more companies that have not depended on me, have been able to help so many more people than I could on my own. And that's led me here today, where for the past 16 years in my company, Pinnacle Global Network, we have helped over 150,000 CEOs worldwide to really get out of their own way and scale their companies. And so I would say millions of business owners struggle with this, feeling they got into business because they wanted more freedom, they wanted to make a difference, but they end up in a situation where the business is running them. And if I drive down the street, I could go into several businesses just right there, wherever you live. And most of them are struggling with that same challenge. And it doesn't have to be that way. So, and it's about really claiming your life and knowing, obviously, that every moment is precious.
Well, you may or may not know, but I can definitely empathize with your story. It's one of those things where something needs to happen externally to really get your attention. And then, you're paying attention to the drive, but you're also, Allison, I'm assuming before that moment, before the accident, you had moments where you were like, not this. Like, I can't keep going at this pace. This is not sustainable. Like, there was something inside of you already pulling at you to try to get your attention. And it just took a huge smack in the face for you to be like, all right, I'm listening.
Yeah. And how many times does that happen?
Yeah.
Every day, we have that inner voice that speaks to us, but we have to have the courage to listen, because it's often forcing us to step into an arena that we haven't been before, that feels scary and unknown.
Do you find, so business is such a vessel for personal growth. And in my work, it was parenting that got me into that first, and then business, and then marriage, and then my health and all the other things. And that's leadership. Like, how do you define leadership? Oftentimes people start it because of a business, or they think a career, but a lot of people don't identify as leaders. So how do you actually define it?
I mean, people talk about a born leader, and I'm sure there are people that have those characteristics, but leading and evolving a company, leading and growing a team toward a vision, I think is something that you learn through going through all the challenges and the ups and downs. I believe leadership is all about how you show up in the good times and the really rough times. And it's how you communicate and how you think, what's going on between your ears. And it's, your success mindset. It is your money mindset, because you could scale 5 million, 10 million, 50 million, $100 million company. If you haven't been there before and you've got a lot of money mindset issues, you're going to sabotage it. So, and I also believe leadership is about lifting others up into leadership. It's not about being this big guru and people looking up to you. No, it is about living by example and helping and empowering others to step up and see that leadership, those leadership qualities within themselves.
I know in the last few years, really transitioning myself from like the doer in the biz, like working in the business to working on the business, but that visionary identity and
Yeah.
how that has also supported me in raising my three boys and going from like, I wouldn't say like toddlerhood to teenhood, but now teen to adulthood, and
Yeah.
how I'm like, this, it's all the same work.
Yes.
So when you are working in something instead of on something, like what are the top maybe 1 to 3 things that you hear business owners say all the time? And I don't like labels in the sense of business owner. It's like us as leaders, whether we're parents, whether it's like our health, our relationships, whatever it is. What are the 1 to 3 things that people need to embody in order to scale? Like non-negotiable must-haves.
Well, I think that most business owners are buried in the weeds of their business. And when you start a company, you are doing everything. And we teach these 5 phases of scaling. And in phase 1, we call the seeker, where you're in it. You're passionate, you're getting your idea out into the world. But we are creatures of habit, and we do what we do and we do what we know. And so we're used to having our eyes on everything. And it is our vision and our baby and all of that. And you start bringing on this team and they want to start sharing their ideas and their brilliance. And you start going, no, 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 no. That's not how we do it. That's not going to work. I've done that before. And so you think you're helping or you think you're saving things from falling apart, but you're actually choking the growth of your business.
Mm-hmm.
And we can do that as parents too. You know, my daughter is grown now, and I'd say one of the hardest things as parents is letting go and allowing their own brilliance to shine, even if it's totally different than what you had in mind for them.
Mm-hmm. And so when you look at the 9 companies that you have built, obviously it was probably easier as you continued to build businesses rather than the first one. So letting go, surrender. People are always going to say, yeah, but they're going to make mistakes. They're going to fail. What if, what if, what if? Like, what do you think that skill is that's required in order for people to go from where they are now to where they want to be? And sitting, like this podcast is called Emotionally Uncomfortable because it's like you got to sit in the messy middle. Like
Yes.
how do you become okay with that challenge?
Business owners often complain. I keep telling my team what to do, and they keep making the same mistakes, or they keep asking me the same questions. And it's so frustrating. And the reason that this is happening is because you keep giving them the answers.
Mm.
And so when your team is coming to you, or even your children, instead of giving them the answer, say something like, well, what do you think we should do? Or what are some ideas that you have? Or why don't you bring 3 ideas to the table, choose one, or present a plan to the team? Because there's a part of the brain that just shuts off when they are constantly expecting you to be the hero and jump in and save the day. And, or maybe they are bringing ideas to the table, but you've been shutting them down. So they say, well, why am I going to even do that?
Yeah.
And so it's not intentional. I had this realization. I was with my husband and we were driving somewhere, and he always likes to go different routes for places. And so I'm looking at my phone, and he said, you don't even know where we are. You don't even know where we are, do you? And I said, no, but you're going to get us there. So why does it matter? And then I realized, oh my gosh, that's exactly what we do to our employees. But when we empower them to start thinking for themselves and owning it, everything starts to change because you start to see these leaders emerge and they start asking those important questions like, how do we increase profits? How do we create a better customer experience? And so forth. So then the vision starts to expand beyond you through them, and it becomes so much richer.
Okay, so I am all for this. I can hear it, I can feel it, I can see it. And you're shifting from a completely different internal operating system, right? Growing up, all your coping strategies, everything that you have gotten praise for, and you have to unlearn and become a different version of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Realistically, I am curious because I see women go from the one version of themselves to the other version of themselves. Realistically, when someone is ready and committed, like, okay, I'm going to ask, I'm going to be curious, I'm going to have more courage instead of being this control freak and this doer and this, like, getting all of my accolades from how much I can get done and all the things. How long do you believe or think it takes to become that type of person you're first starting and you are that type A control freak?
Wow, that's such a great question because it honestly took me decades to fully evolve.
Mm-hmm.
When I look at each business and each opportunity, I would learn and grow from each one because I definitely made my mistakes along the way. I definitely would talk too much in meetings or step over people. Um, and I would see what that would do or the look on their face, or I'd lie in bed at night going, oh my God, I shouldn't have said that. How we do even with our children. Oh, I should have handled that differently. And I think that you have to go through that evolution. And, I'm not saying it should take you decades, but I've been building businesses over 40 years now. So I'm not the same person that I was back then. I have evolved into a much higher energetic version of myself. I'll just say that. Um, but I still occasionally will have to catch myself. I mean, nobody's perfect, but the reward on the other side is when you start to see a team evolve and be excited about the vision and put their own spin on it and seeing their dreams realize. Like we have some of the same team members that have been with us years and years and years. And we have a team of close to 40 CEO mentors that have built successful companies of their own. And, we've been able to help people travel around the world and buy homes and do things for their families. And if it was me in there holding on so tightly, I do not think, I know for sure, this would not have happened. And it's just so much more fun when everybody is part of the vision, contributing those ideas. It's just, like I said, a much richer experience. But one of the first things you said at the beginning of this interview is that, business is a perfect vessel to grow as a human being because you're going to face your stuff. You have people depending on you. You have a bottom line, you have payroll to meet. Like it will push you to the edge. But if you keep operating out of fear and the way you've been doing it before, you will continue to get the results that you have now. And you're not going to realize that big dream that you have.
And the dreams keep coming. It's like layer upon layer upon
Yes.
layer. And the more I can hear you, I'm like, yes, 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 shaking my head, shaking my head. because when I started my personal development journey, it was parenting, and I, stepped into like conscious parenting and learning about all of that stuff and going, okay, you are the role model, right? Like what we see in other people is the work that we need to do. And every time I'm learning about leadership, every single time they talk about business and the people that I respect, they're like, you need to take ownership. How did this happen? Why did this happen?
Yes.
And it can be a specific type of person that is willing to do that type of work, but I'm curious your thoughts on this because I work with all women and I will see them get to their edge. And then I'm like, now the work starts. Now this is where the magic is. This is where you get to choose. Are you going to step over it or are you going to retreat back? There's like a fable. I'm totally going to mess this up. Have you ever heard about the bull and the cow? Or sorry, the buffalo and the cow, how
No.
during a storm, a buffalo will run towards the storm because they know they're going to get through it quicker, where a cow will either like lay down or run away from the storm. So they're in it longer. And it's like you
Hmm.
have that moment of choice. And that's
Hmm.
where I see people, their upper limits happen. And they're like, you know what? I'm just going to get a job. I'm just going to do this. This is too hard, and just really not mastering that resistance and knowing themselves and knowing how it shows up. But it's in those moments where you're like, you got to dig deeper into like, why did I start this? Why
Hmm.
did I choose this? And it feels so counterintuitive to what freedom actually is. How has your relationship evolved over time with quote unquote freedom or taking that radical responsibility for how you want to feel in the life you want?
I think taking responsibility is absolutely everything. And that's where life begins. And that happened for me probably around 30 years old. I was married for about 9 years. And when we separated, and that was also around the time that the accident happened. So everything was kind of imploding in my life. Um, at the time, I felt, prior to that, I thought, if I take responsibility, that means I'm letting other people off the hook.
Mm.
But what I realized through my own deep work at the time was that by taking responsibility, it is the most freeing experience ever because you realize that your choices make an impact one way or another, but you get to choose differently. And as a CEO of a company or a business owner, it is your responsibility. Whatever happens in your company, it all comes back to you.
Yeah.
It is, ultimately the beginnings of your vision, the people you attract to the company, and so forth. And when you lead like that, you attract other people that also take accountability for themselves. You don't have to be standing over them and asking them what they're doing and why they're doing it. They take personal responsibility. But I think that is absolutely everything. I remember years ago when I was going through that time and I was really depressed, and I had a mentor, and I really believe in mentorship. And that's why we mentor other CEOs, and I still have a mentor to this day. And he said to me, Allison, you do depression really well. I think you should keep doing it. And I was so mad. I was like, he has so much nerve to say something like that. But it was like he threw a bucket of ice on my head. And
Yeah.
I looked at myself in the mirror and went, oh gosh, this has got to stop. I need to choose differently. And that took courage for him to say that.
I am over here shaking my head because I've had to obviously have those hard conversations with myself. And some of the best mentors that I've ever had are the ones that were willing to go there. And I'm like, they saved my life. It takes a lot of courage to tell people the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And when you are invested in quality mentorship, but also you're willing to go to that next level, that's where you start to feel more alive and energized much quicker, right? It's not, I have over the years tried to so I say hard, I don't believe in hard, consistently unravel this undoing. And I want to talk to you about what you've noticed with the CEOs that you attract, male versus female, this conversation around motherhood, because I believe, especially in my own mothering journey, my health journey, that my children forced me to create more of my life, forced me to have more time, forced me to take better care of myself. And they were never the reason why I couldn't do something. But I was also willing to look at those edges and push myself in those areas. And I found it incredibly challenging to be in the world, in the culture of motherhood, because I don't resonate with much of it, that we need to sacrifice and that we can't, and that, money is gross and I can't make money because I'm raising children and all the things. So I'm curious your experience with that and what you see might be more of a barrier or opportunity for growth for women versus men, especially women raising children.
Yeah, I mean, I had my daughter when I was 25, so she's 36 now. But when she was little, really, all the way till she had left the house, she was pretty much with me through all my different businesses. I used to take her everywhere. And I had a lot of people over the years say, Allison, you should focus solely on your daughter and put this, silly business thing aside and until she's grown. And I always thought that was so crazy, because what do you want for your children? You want them to see that dreams are possible. And at the time, when I started in business, there weren't near as many women business owners as there are now. This is definitely pre-internet days. And personally, I have never really felt that being a woman business owner has hindered me at all. This is just my personal experience. Now, I've always, bootstrapped businesses. And so I've never going after investment dollars. And I do know that women business owners are getting about 2% of investment dollars to men business owners, although it's changing and starting to grow. But for me, actually, I always felt like, wow, I stand out in a crowd. So this is a good thing. And I loved seeing so many more women business owners. I think that, yeah, I mean, why can't you have it all? There's no reason for that. I think women are so powerful beyond measure. And we're so good at multitasking. We learn to do that when we have our children. And I think we are, we're able to really empower all the people around us to step up into their potential by leading by example.
Yeah. And that's how we're going to make an impact in the world. That's how we're creating the change, is becoming, I always say, become the type of person you want your child to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Allison, I could talk to you all day. Where can people get more of you? And of course, dive into your world if they feel connected?
Yeah, I would love that. So our website, where you can read all about our company, is Pinnacle Global Network.com. You can find me on all social media at Allison Maslan or at Pinnacle Global Network. And then we have a Scale It assessment, so you can kind of see where are you in the scaling process in your business. What are the gaps holding you back to get to that next level? And that's at scaleitready.com.
Awesome. Thank you, Allison.
Thank you so much.